just flip the slide, Pat. Let me just welcome everybody.
Yep.
Give you a little information. Welcome to Print Media Center webinar. We like to bring you programming that's topical, relevant, and certainly Inkjet fills that position very nicely. These are some of the other things we do on the slide. Look, I can do this, and you can all see me doing that. Connect with me if you want to, get involved with the webinar. New Print Fight Club. Hello, everybody should get involved in that. Next, Pat.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
And here's ways you can connect with us. Obviously, if you visit the site, you can find all that out. And if you are tweeting live, please use the hashtag Inkjet so everyone can follow along. I'm going to be putting myself on mute and manning the questions. Guys, please ask as many questions as you want. Pat already knows I like to interrupt with relevant questions, and I will be doing that. This is really your chance to speak to 3 people who are using Inkjet successfully, selling it successfully, so, and of course Pat, who's the Inkjet expert. So really take advantage of this. Right now, I'm going to turn everything over to Pat McGrew. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Yeah.
So, hi, folks. I'm Pat McGrew, and I'm going to ask you to think of this as an old-time radio hour. We're going to do a number of things that aren't sort of traditional for a webinar. We, as you may have noticed, if you're capable, we have our video links up so you get to see all of us. You get to see the lovely Jasper, who's hanging out from Belgium. You get to see the lovely Paul Gardner, who's hanging out in Salt Lake, and the lovely Chris Ross, who's also hanging out from Salt Lake. And I'm hanging out from Aurora, Colorado. So we're all over the place. And, of course, Deborah is in lovely Florida, where there is not snow. So my name's Pat McGrew, and some of you know me, some of you don't. I've been hanging around the customer communication industry for a few decades, and I do a lot of stuff with print. And at the moment, I'm the Inkjet evangelist for HP, and what that really means is that I get to help really great customers help their customers take advantage of the power of high-speed inkjet. And as part of that job, I get to run around the world and meet really cool people and look at really cool print jobs. So it's just sort of the coolest job on earth, really. I asked for some of my friends to come help out today. And, it's always funny when you invite someone to do a webinar. There's that immediate little frisson of fear, I think, that they have that, oh, my God, they're going to be talking to people on a webinar. But these are 3 people who no fear ever exists for them. The first person that I thought of to ask was, of course, Paul Gardner. And if you're out on LinkedIn, you know Paul. He is Mr. Disruptive Print, but he's also an Inkjet evangelist. And what you're going to notice is that I think of all of these people, all 3 of these people, as evangelists, because they are the people who are in our industry, who are talking to customers every single day, and they are selling really big, really cool inkjet jobs. That's what they do, and that's what we really want to share with you today is what does it take if you've decided to make the investment in inkjet, or if you're somebody who's trying to decide whether it's safe to buy inkjet on behalf of your customer or on behalf of your brand. What's it really take? That's what we're going to learn about. And so Paul's going to help us on that journey along with Jasper Waters. And Jasper is just a really cool guy. You're going to love him. He has some of the coolest stories to tell. He is with Centr out of Belgium, and the cool thing about Centr is that they have gone through a complete transformation. They've sold off all their offset presses, and they are now a fully digital environment, and while they still do offset work that they contract out, their customers are embracing Inkjet, and they're sharing their ROI, which is really cool. And then Chris Ross, who I feel attached at the hip to these days. Chris is with System, and he also helps out the team at Hudson, but he's been most recently helping HP and our Inkjet team with a project that we'll be unveiling the results of here in the next month. And it's really going to be cool when we share it, where we're actually testing the value proposition of data-driven relevant communication in the marketing community. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you, Chris, for coming and hanging out with me today. So what I really want to do in this in this time that we have together is I want to let these guys share with us what they do and how they do it. And I thought the best way to get started was to talk to each one of them individually, and then we'll sort of jump in. And what I'll say I'm going to start with Paul, and then Jasper, and then Chris. But Jasper and Chris, when Paul's talking, don't hesitate. Jump in if you've got something to share. And I'll invite you all to treat it more like a radio panel than like a presentation, because I think that's how our listeners are going to get their best value out of it. So what I'd like to do is, again, start with Paul. So, Paul, I love you. You know I love you. Paul knows I love him because I took him to Bali. And how many times do you get to go to Bali in your life? Because the story at Hudson is so cool. So can you tell us a little bit about you, because you've got this long history, but then also a little bit about the Hudson elevator pitch when you're talking to commercial print buyers?
Sure. So, Paul Gardner, I've been in print my whole life. Started when I was a little kid with a Kodak camera, fell in love with that, built a darkroom with my dad when I was a teenager, spent some time in the military, then as a sales guy, then an operations guy, and here I am at Hudson working to reinvent print. So the Hudson printing story is we're a 105-year-old company. We've been everything from an ad agency to a publisher. For 30 years, we were known far and wide in the Intermountain States as one of the best heat-set web offset printers in the world. And that was the one thing we were known for. We were probably best in the world at telling our customers no, at telling them, no, we don't do that. They'd call up for a box of business cards. No, we don't do that. They'd call up for 5,000 flyers. No, we don't do that. And the essential message was, if you need a truckload of beautiful print and you can wait a couple of weeks for it, Hudson's your company. Because we worked on fairly long lead times. Our average run length was probably 200,000 or 300,000 impressions. And we did the same thing essentially over and over for 30 years. Whether the most exciting thing that changed in the business during that time was the addition of a new press or the replacement of an old press with a new one, but very little in the way of new capabilities, and that was just fine with the Hudson family for what they were doing at the time. But Paul Hudson, a couple of years ago, bought the company from his older brother, who retired. Paul's now the sole owner, and it took us about a year of getting to know each other before I joined the company, before I got the invitation to join the company. But Paul's charter to me in joining Hudson is to help him build the business that will be here for another 100 years. And we see Inkjet web printing as a key part of that.
That's a really cool story. Now, one of the things I wanted to say about Hudson, though, is that you do have all the technologies, right? You still do offset printing as well as digital printing.
Yes, we do. But in offset, it's 4 heat-set web presses. So a very, very narrow niche in offset, or traditional printing, as we're calling it internally. And with our customers, right? We talked about traditional print and digital print.
Okay.
And, that's a big part of why, we first purchased an Indigo press shortly before I joined the company. And then about 6 months after I joined the company, we made the decision to buy Inkjet Web and to buy HP Inkjet. And that was in part because it mirrored our analog capabilities of producing tremendous volumes of print and beautiful print. And we believed our strength in moving into high-speed, high-capacity digital was to leverage what we've been good at for the past 30 years, right? And that's managing paper that comes on rolls.
So one of the things I did put on the screen here, because it's off of an HP thing that we use, is that you produce things on your HP T350. And I have to tell everyone that Hudson has the most amazing website, and they have a lot of video out there. And if you go out and you watch any of the videos, you will discover that Hudson does not call their machine an HP T350. Paul, what do you call it?
No, we don't. We call it an HP T330. So when we started looking seriously at Inkjet, we identified what we thought at the time was every single company that made an inkjet press that could support the thing out in the field, that could produce reasonable work on a consistent basis. And we went from 10 companies down to 3 really quickly. This was 15 months ago now. But even in looking at that, we couldn't get exactly what we were looking for. It doesn't exist in the world. Still doesn't quite exist today, but with the HDNA announcement from a few days ago, it's getting closer. But so what we talked to HP about was, we're really looking to do commercial work on this press. We're not looking to do books, which you guys were very good in articulating to us. That's a great market. We were not looking to print transactional documents or statements or financial information, which again, some of your most successful customers are doing that and doing it very, very well. We were looking to do general commercial print, but in a variable world and a short-run world and all of the wonderful things that Inkjet can do for you, but we were looking to do commercial work. So heavy coverage stuff, glossy substrates. HP warned us from day one, be careful with gloss, right? Start with some uncoated papers and work your way into this when you get the press up and running. We didn't. Our first job was on gloss. But what we talked to HP about is we don't care about speed, but we want all of the capability to put ink on the page, to dry that ink, to re-moisturize the web that's just been hosed down and baked through 2 different print engines, and be able to create a flat sheet at the end. So what HP did for us was came back and configured we should call it the T330SW, because at the time Steve Walkley was the guy with HP that was making a big dent in my helmet, and Steve and his team came back with this configuration that didn't match a T300, although it was the same speed. It didn't match the T350, although it had all of the drying capacity and more that a T350 normally ships with. And what we did with HP's help was essentially spend the money in the places that were most important to us. So drying capacity, remoisturizing capacity, very flexible rewinding and sheeting options, but not the speed of a T350.
So there you go. So this is customer asks, vendor listens. That's a really good story. So thank you, Paul, so much. So I want to move on now to my friend Jasper. And Jasper, the things that you guys do at Cemeta, they have been one of my favorite customers because they're fearless, and you guys you do really, really cool stuff. Can you tell us a little about you and a little bit about Cemeta and a little bit about some of these jobs that we've got up on the screen that clearly have a lot of color?
Yes, thank you. Hi Pat, hi everyone. Jasper Wouters. I'm an account manager at Cemeta actually. I've been at Cemeta for the last 5 years of my career. But as a teenager and in my early 20s, I was messing a little bit with InDesign as a designer, and then I started in the offset sheet fed business actually to sell print jobs for the largest Belgian printer, mainly with the focus on export. So the high quality offset print catalogs in automotive and cosmetics, which I was selling for a couple of years before making the switch to Cemeta, or the company before Cemeta actually. And yeah, Cemeta is quite a special story actually, because we always had our main focus in the retail business, focusing on loyalty campaigns and really doing the marketing for the biggest retailer in Belgium. But we started out as an offset printer actually, and ever since digital technology was on the market, we invested in these digital printers, starting of course with cheap fed printers, moving on to the earliest inkjet web presses. That was about 7 years ago, I think, and the last 4 or 5 years ago we switched to completely to HP. And I can join my fellow Paul Gardner. We at Cemeta, we're not focusing on transaction, we're not focusing on publishing either, but we really focus on the personalized direct mailings and really the loyalty programs. That means what we need at Cemeta is data, customer data, and some of our customers can offer us a lot of data, and for some of our customers we really go and help them to start with their databases and to start moving and using their database for commercial and for marketing purposes. So yeah, the last 4 years have been a real journey with some of our customers who send out millions and millions of fully personalized direct mails every week. So yes, we use T400, T410 and T230 for smaller runs. And what I do as a sales rep, I really try to inspire the biggest companies in Belgium and in Europe to make the switch from mass communication to personalized communication. And we see evolving from an offset company to a full digital company today. We see that marketeers really believe in the switch because they have a lot of costs for their paper, they have a lot of costs for their traditional way of communicating. In a marketing world that's completely changed to a lot of online marketing, to a lot of above the line and online marketing, and they're really looking for the ROI in their print jobs. And when Cimeta closed down, it's true what Pat said. Cimeta closed down completely last year all its offset activities. But we have a long history, of course, in purchasing some of our offset web products, and now we just purchase the offset sheet fed products as well. Because what we noticed, of course, in the offset world is that the competition was too strong. There was overcapacity, and at the end of the day, okay, we want to have an ROE and a product that's supported on the market. And last year we sold eight offset sheet fed presses to fully invest in
a lot.
That's a lot. It's true. To fully invest in the digital future. But when we did it, we also analyzed our customers' needs, of course, and the needs on the market, and also a lot of the jobs, the orders we produced on those offset presses, where we saw a lot of complexity and a lot of need, as you said, for color, for instance, need for personalization, and a lot of the jobs we did in offset with a high range of complexity, some of them we were able to transform into digital jobs, for instance. But yeah, I can talk you through some business cases in a while.
So can I ask a question though, Jasper? So like that Colruyt piece that people are seeing in the lower part of the screen, one of the things that impressed me about that when that moved from offset to digital is it has, there it is. It has a lot of brand in it, right? I mean, you have pictures of Coca-Cola cans, and you have pictures of very famous brand boxes and packaging in there. And I know that one of the questions that I hear a lot, I think Deborah's heard this too, is that oh my gosh, if I convert to Inkjet, my customer's going to be really concerned about their brand colors being represented correctly. But clearly you're doing this every single, or every 15 days for the Colruyt mailer, and you've got brand colors in there. Did you have any issues convincing your customers that that was a change that was going to be good for them?
Of course. That was also my job and our job at Cimeta to convince our customers, but in Europe there's a real, the market is really dominated by offset, and the quality, of course, of offset is known. So our concerns, of course, when we partnered up with HP, was in fact the quality and the color management. But before HP we had other web technology, Inkjet web technology, and these two facts, the color management and the quality, made a switch to HP, in fact. And now we're proud to say that after a couple of years of experience with Inkjet web, color management at Cimeta is really stable. So it's true what you say. If you go to the brands, and for instance Coca-Cola or even Colruyt, of course, they have their logo colors as well. They were concerned, and they needed to see the proof that the Inkjet could be stable as well. Yeah, over in Europe we have they have had some issues with paper, for instance. To start, it's not the same. The paper market is not the same as in the US, and also with the color management. But after a couple of years of experience, we were able to stabilize those two parameters. And yeah, the brands that publish in our folders, in our brochures, they're convinced today that Inkjet is as good as their offset quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I really want to come back around to this idea of color and data, but I want to get Chris get him a chance to update us, and then I want to come back to this color story because I know Deborah's got a lot of questions.
I have 2 questions pending about color.
All right, so let's talk to Chris first, and one of the reasons that I asked Chris to jump on board with us is because an awful lot of these things we're talking about have to do with what the customer actually sees, right, in the printed piece. And Chris, can you jump in and explain a little bit about what you do and the value proposition?
Sure. So, we're a little bit of an odd duck in this whole situation in that we don't come from a print background. We are, not, we don't have the depth that Jasper and Paul have, but what we do is very interesting. We are what's called a marketing experience design firm. So what we do is help companies really get clear on defining who their target audiences are, building personas around those targets, and then a really interesting thing that we call optimal message mapping, where we'll actually take a buyer profile and go through their customer journey. So understand what initiates their interest in a product or service. Where do they go to discover what their options are? What criteria do they use to evaluate those options? What ultimately gets them to make a decision? And so what that ultimately renders for a client is a very specific message map for a particular buyer profile. So that then becomes the foundation for a content strategy. So the clear kind of connection to targeted marketing, some of the things that Jasper was talking about is, it's been interesting, in some of the work we've done with Hudson and other clients where they get the value of variable data printing, but they haven't done their homework, basically. They haven't done the work to really understand, well, who is our target and what story do we need to tell that audience? And if they don't know that, it doesn't matter how much data they have or how great the technology is, they can't really get started. And so that's, the value that we provide in this is to help people really identify, who their targets are, what their stories are, and then that becomes the foundation for the materials that they create to then go out to market.
And you're actually helping HP a little bit here too. Chris has been working with our marketing research team. We figured out early on that there was a need in the industry to be able to articulate this value proposition, and not everybody has a Chris Ross in their back pocket that they can go to. So we started looking at what market research was already out in the market, and we discovered that the last really good one was 1998. And a few things have changed since 1998. I think I've been through 20 cell phones since 1998. And if you look at just the technologies and the way people communicate and the amount of data that's available, and the laws have changed about what you can use, there's really been a lot of change. So we asked Chris to help us out and help us build a project where we could learn a little bit more about the current way that variable data and segmentation and customer communication work. And I've held this piece up a couple of times, and I'll keep holding it up probably for the next 2 or 3 years. Chris has helped us out in kind of identifying some buyer personas and creating messaging to them to see what's going to work. And the team at Hudson is the printer that has produced it, and there will be this giant joint report thing that will come out later that will share the data, the experience that we've had, and I suspect we'll be calling on Paul and Chris to help us out a lot to articulate the message in the marketplace once we learn a little bit more. So it's a really cool thing, I think, that to have access to somebody like Chris who understands how to formulate these things. And Jasper, I know your teams have worked with the data analysis people and trying to understand the customers as well. So it's pretty clear that if you're going to take advantage of high-speed, data-driven communication, that there's this need. So Deborah, I know you've got questions sitting out there. So I think some of them are about color, but maybe not all of them. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, they're actually both about color, and they're both from Mark Peterson.
Okay.
And I guess I'll ask them both at the same time.
Okay.
The first one is, what kind of color coverage can be attained? through Inkjet.
Okay.
And then the second is also what kind of resolution can be expected. And he elaborates by saying, I have a client that needs quicker turn than press, low cost, and high resolution and color coverage.
All right, see those images over there on the right side that say ugly on them? Those came off the Hudson Press. So if you think that that's I think that's high coverage. I think it's darn high coverage. They did an entire magazine. All right. Give me a second. Excuse me for jumping out of frame here for a second, but yes.
Oh my God.
This magazine, and it's a little bit harder to see when I start doing this, but you see this? This was all done on that, what does Bill Satry call it? The almighty HPT 330 out at Hudson. So I'm pretty impressed by that for color. But Jasper, what you guys do a lot of high coverage. How do you talk to customers about that?
Let me just start off by saying, when a customer switches from, for instance, offset technology to digital print technology, you have to inform him realistically about the possibilities of Inkjet. And the biggest thing, the biggest return they get is not if the color is 100% the same as PMS, for instance, but ROI lies in the segmentation, the personalizations of the messages. Now, nevertheless, our clients, for instance, Mercedes, Coca-Cola, and so on, they have to be assured that the quality will be completely as they want. So we print for insurance companies with the highest coverages, full page pictures. We print for fashion, a lot of for fashion. Of course, our biggest clients are in retail, so there are a lot of products need books, gastronomic books and stuff with a lot of food and high quality dishes in them, so we can't afford to miss a dot. So a lot of those issues, the issues of the quality, in my experience, lie in the quality of the paper. And what we see over in Europe, you can also add a lot of quality with pre-coating or coating after the printing. So those two parts of the quality aspect have been really important for Cimeta. So over the years, we really invested in the color management and also in the coating aspect. And our range of paper is limited. We've tested a lot of paper on our inkjet presses, and we have the experience and a lot of a range of papers that we can offer our clients. Offset paper, uncoated paper, some paper we use for newspapers, and then also the silk and the coated papers. So it's.
Now, Jasper, I have to say something. Now, so Cimeta does some printing, full disclosure, for HP from time to time, and we actually came to them and we asked them to print on a paper that we thought was pretty cool, and they refused. So the one thing I think Cimeta's really done is you've wrapped your arms around the papers that you know and you know how to get the best quality out of and you're comfortable with, and those are what you print on. And when crazy people like me come along and say, wouldn't you like to print on this other paper? You feel free to say no when you don't think it's appropriate to go on your press.
Of course, it's always finding the balance, because our main target group of people are the marketeers, and the marketeer is not happy with he's not always happy using for the fifth time the same paper. So he wants a new paper, he wants a new product. So we offer a range, and we can, of course, test every once in a while a new paper, but it's important to learn from our experiences and to try to offer a product. But it can be a silk product, a post product in fashion, and high quality products and high quality businesses.
So, Paul, so Chris and his team were the designers, and the design team came up with this little puppy for us, right? And this has got some pretty nice coverage to it as well. I know you guys printed the ugly piece. I've seen a lot of other work that you guys have done. It's been, you've got some high coverage work you've done. How do you have that conversation with a customer? Is there anything you tell them doesn't go to Inkjet?
Well, we're very careful to show them what we've done and to talk to them about what we know and what we don't know. So we're about 15 months into this adventure now, and there's still more we don't know than what we do about what's going to work well and how things are going to finish. Pat, you and I have worked together on some interesting projects that have taught us some things that won't work and that do. So it's just really about full disclosure, to sit them down, show them the beautiful stuff, and then show them some of the ugly stuff too, because we've done some of that, right? We've done some ugly stuff deliberately for customers that weren't so concerned about what does it look like as how fast can I get out of here and how inexpensively. So we've pushed the gamut, much like Jasper describes on papers, everything from literally Bible paper to cover weights that HP telling us we should probably be running. But it's really just about being upfront with them. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. And just because we don't know it doesn't mean we're not willing to learn if you're willing to figure this out.
Are there color management tools, Jasper and Paul, that are your favorites, or do you expect that your teams will have to re-color manage things that a customer sends to you?
Let me just say something. Okay, let me just say everything regarding the color management at Symetra started off a little bit, as Paul said, with trial and error. So we had our experiences with some of the settings that worked. Other settings didn't work quite as good as we wanted. So it really came down to defining the most perfect profiles for our presses in combination with the type of the job. That was the first step, and then we invested in a proofing system to match the proof with the actual production. And then we see that we have a range of products, recurrent products such as letters, newspapers, self-mailers, brochures, and so on, with different coverages. And then we try to define actually the perfect settings for each of these products. And our people from quality and product management, they really define those settings, and we're able to educate our people on the floor to really maintain stability in their colors.
And then Paul, is it same there at Hudson? Was it? I mean, you're both companies. You've come from offset where you really already understand color, but digital color is different.
Digital color is different. We had the benefit of having about a year's worth of experience under our belt with Indigo and color management before jumping into Inkjet. And Indigo was a change for us, not just because it was digital, but also because it was sheet fed. Right? In the world of Hudson printing for 30 years, paper grew on rolls. It didn't grow in sheets, right? So that was a change too. But Indigo helped us to learn the differences. And you know, I still tell people, I think Indigo prints as beautifully as almost anything else on the planet, and the exceptions are beauties to behold, right? I've seen some multicolor inkjet stuff in the white format world that I think holds a candle to inkjet, or I mean to Indigo, but not many other things do. And so we embraced that wider color gamut that Indigo offered over our offset presses very eagerly, right? And in some cases that created communication challenges with clients that, okay, it's different over here. I've got a wild color gamut. In the analog traditional world, we managed to swap, which is a very restrictive color space. So we were able to do some things with learning and with helping customers to think differently about color in the Indigo world that have served us well in the inkjet world, where it's very much still the case. We've got a wider color gamut on the T330 than we do on any of our offset presses, but it's not the same color gamut.
Right.
So there's an educational process there too. If we just try and manage inkjet inside of the swap space, we chop off a big part of the beautiful color gamut that lets you do some really nice stuff. So it's an ongoing challenge for us. We haven't figured it all out yet.
That's a work in progress. So Chris, I don't want to leave you out of this conversation, because as you're doing marketing experience design, I mean, some of that conversation is around color and use of color in the marketing communication space. When you're thinking about that, and since you are working closely with Hudson, how does that impact, if you're thinking about something that might go to an inkjet press, how does that impact the conversation you have with your customer who's asking for this marketing help?
I think one of the big things that's different, and Jasper touched on this a little bit, is I think if you're having the color conversation, you're having the wrong conversation. I think what's exciting about this new capability is the ability to, you've got a whole new, from a marketing perspective, you've got a whole new set of things to play with, right? I mean, you've got now capabilities that, Paul and I have often talked about this. You've got the ability to do things that you would have just never considered doing before. Would I have ever considered doing a customized, one-to-one magazine for someone? You never would have even considered that because there was no practical way to execute that. So I think, when it comes to experience design, it's not about, because we all know the color is different, as, you've been talking about, right? It's not that one's better, there's different properties with each, right? But you're having the wrong conversation if you're trying to do an apples-to-apples color comparison. The beauty and what's exciting from a marketing perspective is all of this new capability, right? The ability to do, regionalized pieces if you're dealing with multiple languages. Jasper, you guys probably deal with this often. The ability to do really short runs of things that still look really beautiful, or to do one-off stuff for events. At Hudson, we've done some stuff for the Sundance Film Festival and some other things that, you just wouldn't have even had the conversation or thought of doing it in the past. So that, in my background is a lot of interactive work as well, and I think, that's one of the other things that's exciting is people are now thinking of print as a viable channel and a viable medium, whereas in the past they may have just discounted it. Print was kind of this old school tactic that, people were kind of dialing down what they were spending on print, and now that's very different. Now you have conversations with people about print, and they get really excited about it. In the past they were, trying to figure out how to print a smaller catalog or print fewer, and
how to not print.
Yeah, or not print at all. And now you're having conversations where you come out of a meeting and people are, their heads are swimming with all the possibilities, right? So that's what's different about it is you're just having a whole different kind of conversation about what print actually is.
So I think, Deborah, that the answer to your questioner is that I don't know that I would put limits on coverage. I'm not sure that I would say that anyone would want to draw that box very tightly. I think any job should be discussed with a potential print provider, especially if you think that there's an opportunity to go to Inkjet because of the size of the runs and the opportunity maybe for segmentation. Don't let your current design scare you away from doing that. Take it to one of these guys who are doing this regularly for customers and let them help you find the path to getting there within the confines of your brand requirements, your coverage requirements, and your segmentation requirements.
Well, Mark definitely said after he saw the magazine that he said that sure is high coverage, and he said it was great info. So thank you for that. I have two questions, one specifically about color. This is from John Prothero, who's a print chatter. Yay, shout out to print chat.
Yeah.
He says, in digital, for some devices, you want to keep the files as RGB since the RIP processes it better than CMYK due to the gamut. Is that the same in Inkjet? And by the way, I understand maybe 4 or 5 words in that sentence.
Well, from our perspective, and I understood about 3 or 4 more maybe than you did, Deborah, but that's the unique side of me. From our perspective, there's not a real hang-up in how much ink you can put on a page. There's not really a hang-up in, how far can I run that ink out to the edge of the page. There's not really a limitation, an absolute limitation in the amount of density that one particular spot on the page could have. It's a different set of parameters than playing with offset. So I'm kind of a little bit off track there, but I think that we were really surprised with Inkjet at what you can get by using less ink sometimes rather than by using more. And in the offset world, we've always looked at ink as something we don't really even calculate the cost of an ink, right? We've got a default factor in there. We don't talk about coverage. We don't ask a customer how much ink is going to be on that page before we give them a price like we think about in Inkjet. This is a different way of thinking about it, but if you can minimize the amount of ink you use, you're minimizing the cost of that print. So it really is a different way of thinking about color and coverage and ink.
Yeah, I was doing some testing in Switzerland a few weeks ago, and we started off with a full color file, and we set it, maximum ink, maximum everything, and we spent about an hour backing all the settings back to get the most color pop on the paper we were using. We took it down to about 85%, a color profile of about 85%, and it was just absolutely brilliant and poppy color. So I think that those things are technical things. Now, his point about the rip and ripping RGB versus ripping CYMK, I think that a lot of the concepts of ripping RGB go back to when the processors on the presses were very limited, and there wasn't a lot of bandwidth on the press physically to take a giant file, a CYMK plain file in and send it out. Our presses are CYMK presses. And so are everybody else's inkjet presses. And so at some point, you've got to have your planes split into C, Y, M, and K. Yep. So you want to do that as early in the process as you can to maintain fidelity. So we typically recommend that customers prepare for CYMK files and prepare their PDF for CYMK and use those standards, and it works very, very well. I know that some customers have to deliver RGB files to us, and we do have the ability to take it in and rip it and get it to the press as well. But I think that there might be a misunderstanding on the part of your questioner as to where the value proposition is. You know, RGB is a different color space than a CYMK color space is. Technically, they're very different and they behave differently. So you want the color space to be what the press is going to produce.
Well, so Pat, our simple answer to that is if you're an expert at managing color, you've got RGB files that you're working with, feel free to convert them to CMYK. If you're not an expert in managing color, please leave them as RGB and let us deal with that.
There you go.
The first thing that's going to happen is somebody just goes in, clicks the box, convert to CMYK, and thinks they've done a great thing. Often they've just destroyed a bunch of the information that we could have used to get a better conversion. Right? All you're doing when you convert from one color space to another is throwing pixels away. You're never gaining true new information, right?
Yeah.
So that's our rough guidance. If you're an expert at managing color, please give us CMYK. If not, give us whatever you're working with.
Okay. Actually, I have a question, if you don't mind. I've heard it mentioned twice. I've heard short run mentioned twice. And I have to tell you, as a print customer, when I think web press, short run is the last thing I am thinking of. So I think it would be important just to touch upon that, because that would make me understand as a customer when I would want to use it, and it would certainly help the printers understand that they don't have to have giant clients necessarily like Mercedes and Coca-Cola to get into this space. So can we discuss that? And then also, Pat, I just want to thank you, Michelle. Michelle likes my question. And then the other thing is I have two questions about data processes. My cat just
Oops.
Yeah, I have two questions about data processing. So you just tell me when you think it's appropriate for that to come in, or maybe we'll take that offline.
Let's talk about short run for a second, though, because I think both Hudson and Sameta service customers at a variety of print lengths. So who wants to jump in?
I can jump in. Of course, at Centr we have the T230 and the T410, but we also have the Indigo. So that means there's always a point where it's more interesting to go sheet fed, and a point when we start off our web presses. But the T430 we really use for shorter runs. And some of the short runs on the same paper we can of course combine in the production planning, but really starting from filling 1,000 envelopes with 2,000, 2,500 A4s can be a job on our T230. Every night we print newspapers in smaller runs, smaller amounts. So the cost, the setup cost, the start cost of these inkjet web presses is really low comparing with offset presses, where we have our costs, our fixed costs of the setup and the setting of the presses is really reduced with the inkjet presses.
So Jasper, those newspapers that you print overnight, I mean, sometimes you're only printing like a very few numbers of copies of each title, right?
Right. They're from just a couple of a couple of exemplars to 50, 70, 250 for each version. But for instance, our transactional documents, which are printed early in the morning, each morning, they have short runs as well. Not every day our clients invoice thousands and thousands of bills. No, sometimes they're smaller runs of 5,000 copies, for instance, and then we print 5,000 letters. So the T230 is a real flexible machine to use for the shorter runs, especially if you narrow your range of papers to a limited range, and then you can combine in the production area different jobs one after the other. Especially for recurrent jobs which are produced more than once a week or more than once a month, for instance, we can really combine those jobs and offer our clients a solution for the small runs as well. But the cost per piece is more or less the same. That means if our clients, some of our offset clients, for instance, who printed the larger volumes, but they had a lot of versions and they were targeting a market that was decreasing their volume, the cost stayed the same for each piece, while if they were doing it in offset and the volumes were decreasing, the prices per piece went up. So with the Inkjet technology, we can also offer a stable price for the products regarding what the volume was for our client. So that's another advantage we see for some of the publishers, for instance, we work for.
Okay. So, Paul, I know you guys have done all sorts of run lengths.
Yeah.
What do you like for a run length? What would you call a short run that you would put on the Inkjet?
Well, boy, that's a tough one. What do we like for run length? Anything
Well, you like long,
6
yeah, I get that.
Because that machine just absolutely loves to run. I bumped into something reading on the HP website when they announced this new technology about duty cycles around Inkjet, and I'm thinking the duty cycle is more a limitation of how many operators have you got than the press. But for short run, we've done some remarkably short stuff, short run stuff, but it's been generally around high page counts. So we've done jobs that have been as few as 20 or 30 books, but it's books with 300 or 400 pages in them.
Yeah.
And that's been a real sweet spot for us in moving work from with our traditional customers off of the traditional presses onto Inkjet. Has been anything with super high page count and relatively low run lengths is just a no-brainer for it. The downside Jasper talked about is you're going through some paper to do the make ready. It's still very inexpensive compared to making aluminum plates and burning paper through an offset web. You got a few hundred feet of paper typically to do a make ready. So if we can fit it on an Indigo, if it's super short run, it's going on the Indigo. If it's super critical color quality, it's going on an Indigo. But more and more, we're finding things that we were thinking were going to have to be Indigo or do work on the Inkjet. And partly, as Jasper described, if you can restrict the number of papers you're running in a given day and sequence the jobs one right after the other, so you're not having to do essentially a make ready or calibration on the press before you start printing, then it gets a lot more effective.
Yeah, we're actually printing live in 2 weeks. We're at Hunkler Innovation Days with a T230 like Jasper has, and we're going to be printing live all day, every day, and we're swapping papers twice a day. So we're building what are basically short-run print jobs that we're going to be running over and over again during the day, just to show that you can do it. You can go from job to job to job to job to job. If you're on a common paper, there's no reason not to do that, and we'll be showing that live, so it'll be sort of fun to do. So, Deb, does that answer your short-run question?
Yeah. Well, no, not really, to tell you the truth. I mean, in my world, I like to know, okay, if it's 5,000 at this, you want to be on this press. But that's because I don't really want to think about it.
Yeah, but Deborah, you know what's going to happen is that's going to be dependent on which printing service provider you're working with, their comfort levels of how small a job they want to take, and what other kinds of work they would pair with it in order to make it economical for both you and for them. So, you hate the answer, it depends, but it kind of depends. Chris, you had a thought?
I was just going to say one of the other things around short runs is, especially if they're, thinking offset versus short run is, a conversation to have with the marketer is how confident are you that you're going to guess right on your quantities, right? I mean, the ability to be dynamic is not just because you're doing a customized piece, but because maybe you're doing kind of a just-in-time sort of supply strategy, right? So, we're gonna, are you gonna print 10,000 catalogs and, cross your fingers that, you don't need 14,000 catalogs, or are you going to, end up using 7,000 and end up throwing away a lot of catalogs? So that's another one of the big advantages of short run is even if the price per piece is a little different, that ability to be smarter with your dollars and more dynamic, that's actually a really pretty compelling part of that whole value story.
I mean, I'd just like to interject with one thing, which is that what I've learned here is that short run can even be a conversation. And that's a great conversation to be able to have with people like me, because I'm going to stop in my tracks and say, what do you mean I can do a short run on a web press? Because I'm not even thinking that is remotely something that is ever going to happen. So I like it. I like it.
Good. We're glad we got you up to date with us.
So Deb, to give you a number, since you're craving a number. I
like it.
If you were printing just a single side, single sheet, or even two sides of a single sheet, and you were doing 1,000 of those, probably makes sense on the inkjet press. If you're doing 100 of those, doesn't make sense.
1,000?
Yeah.
That's
with
short.
the right one,
short.
with the right, if you're working with the right provider who has the right setup to accommodate your job, that we see that all the time.
And you're willing
so
to
that's fantastic for the printers to know that, though, because they know that they don't only have to go after these big, gigantic clients. That they, of course, that we love those clients, but you can also subsidize lots of work for your other clients on the press. So I like it. I like the short run aspect. I know we only we got a lot of people wanted the numbers, so that was good. We have a couple of minutes left. How do you want to handle, Pat?
So you said that you had some questions on data, and I really did want to hit data because data is one of those things that honestly makes the press worthwhile, right? It's one of the things that makes it possible for everybody to really to make use of their press. So give me a good data question that we can get everybody to weigh in on, because we are just about at the top of the hour.
Okay, this is from Nancy Collins, who says, we are having a disconnect with our customers about how long it takes to process the data and how quickly digital print is produced. How do you manage expectations with the data processing time?
So from the time the data arrives to the time that a job can actually be printed. So Jasper, you guys work with this all the time. What are your normal talk tracks with your customers?
It all depends a little bit. If for each big project we have a setup, and it means a setup of a project to optimize the transfer from the data to the presses. It means that we have to together with the client and start from zero and create a fully personalized magazine. Then of course we need some time together with the client or the agency to really transfer their marketing strategy into a production strategy. But let's say the marketing strategy is there and the data is provided. Then using the Inkjet technology is the shortest time to market. It's what Chris said. We don't have any transports, we don't have any preprints, we just have a white paper and transforming the data through our platform and pumping it into the presses. So it's really the shortest time to market. If you see the speed of the presses today, the finishing, yeah, you know.
But Jasper, what about the time from the time a customer delivers data to you? How I guess it's the time to actually take that data and turn it into a print file that you can print. Do you do that in an hour? Do you do that in 5 hours? How much time do you ask your customers to give you between the time they get the data to you and the time you can get on the press?
It's hard to just say a time because yeah, we need data, of course, the databases in which the data of the personalization lies, and it can be AFP files, it can be databases to the Excel, TXT, but there's also, of course, the designs themselves, and designs need to be produced or made by the designers. That takes a while. And the first time, it takes a while to let the client know what we need. We need the PDFs or the JPEGs or whatever they want to personalizing with their images. But once the setup is done, it can be overnight. It can be overnight, and the next day we print. So it goes real fast. It depends of the volume, of course, of the data. And the first time we need to set up the platform and set up the optimization of the project. But once this is done, it goes real fast. We print 800,000 letters for the Belgian government, and the data is processed overnight. So it goes really fast.
And so, Deborah, I think that your questioner is asking about, you know, the speed of processing the data, when in fact no two jobs behave the same way, and every data processing environment is built a little bit differently. So I think that one of the things that your questioner should always do is have a conversation with maybe a number of print providers to find out who is best set up to take the data in and work with them. As Jasper said, there's design, there's access to the data in a certain way, there's what the intent of using the data is. Are you doing variable data replacement where you're just plucking some information out of a database and sticking it on the page, or is that data really a trigger to cause some certain formatting to happen? So it's a whole other webinar to talk about all the options with data. And I'm sure Cletus would agree.
Well,
Sorry.
One bookend to that, we look at things in really three categories of things we do for our customers. There's jobs, which is something that walks in the door, says, here I am, I need you to print me. We've never seen the job before, even though we may know the customer. It's something, an unknown quantity, an unknown factor. The second category would be a project, which is something we're working together with a customer on, oftentimes to do something they've never done before or that we've never done before, trying to push the envelope and create some value out in the world. And then the third one is what we love most of all when you ask about where's your sweet spot, is what we call a program. And that's something we've done the heavy lifting that Jasper describes. You understand what are we trying to accomplish, what are the tools, what's the workflow, what is the outcome, and how do we know we're doing a good job, right? And once we've built that program, we try and automate those things to the point where you get the data from the customer, you put the data in, you push a couple of buttons to trigger an automated process or two, and it just gets to the press ready to go with a high degree of confidence that what you're doing is correct, because you've built processes that support that. And in that case, we've got one program that runs, we get files every day, we deliver, we've got a 48 or 72-hour service level agreement. We typically deliver within 24 hours and sometimes same day because it is so predictable. It gets files about 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're on press usually that afternoon. So it can be a really high brain damage level to really super simple. It just works.
Yeah.
I actually think it's a good idea to, you know, as we move forward in the year path, to actually tackle
We need a data webinar.
Because it's not just what you're doing with it when you get it, but it's how to help the printers work with their clients on compiling it.
Yeah, so that everybody knows what, speaking the same language, making sure everybody's talking about the same thing.
Everybody wants to do variable data, but they don't necessarily know how to get their clients to get the right information to make that happen. Yeah. The other thing I have here is from Eleni, and Eleni, I'm sorry, I'm not going to attempt your last name. I'm sorry about that. Eleni with a K. Are you able to provide literature that explains how this technology works? Is there a technical document available for download?
So a couple of things that I'll suggest. One, you can go out to the hp.com site, you know, Go Inkjet Web Press, and the videos are out there that actually show how it works. But even easier, go to YouTube, right? Go to YouTube and go to the HP channel, but also go to the Hudson channel. Go out to Semeta has a lot of videos out there. one of the things we've discovered is that a video is worth 1,000 words. In fact, it's probably worth 100,000 words. So go out to YouTube, type in HP Inkjet Web Press, and you're going to see a laundry list of video that will show pictures of how it works, pictures of how our inkjet technology works, but then also pictures of how our customers are actually making it work for them. Make sense?
Yeah, she says thank you.
You betcha. You betcha. So, Deborah, we are at 5 minutes after the hour.
Yes. I mean, we're good. If you could just let people know website, and Paul, there's a lot of interest in you, so I'm going to plug his damn LinkedIn group.
Oh, yeah.
It's damn LinkedIn group. Paul's LinkedIn group is digital printing and also disruptive print, and you should definitely check it out. Not as good as mine, but it's a close second.
You should, you know, let me tell you, you should be on both. You should be on both of Paul's and you should be on Deb's, because the conversations are different. They're really definitely worth following.
Yeah, and Paul's a much stricter manager than me. He's the only one that boots my conversations.
Not anymore.
We can have a, well, actually, I'm going to have a fight club with you about that. I'll be like, stop banning my conversations on LinkedIn.
There you go. All right. So I'll tell you what, Deborah, what we can do is we can provide the websites for Symetra, for Hudson Printing, and for System, and the HP website that has the information about the technology, and a list of some YouTube links. I'll shoot them over at you, and then maybe you can put them in your LinkedIn group, and maybe we can throw them up on Print Media Center.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll also send them out to everyone who registered.
Absolutely brilliant. I can get those to you this afternoon.
We'll give everyone's contact information. And Chris, I just have to say to you that customer profile thing you did was really cool. I loved that. Thanks. That was really cool. So you should check out
I wanted Chris here. Yeah.
You should check out this guy's website too, because he's smart. You like
really
that.
Cool guy, right? And you're gonna love. Please go out to the Symetra and look for Symetra on YouTube as well, because some of the jobs that you saw on the page we had up for Jasper, the Atheist Insurance Magazine, the Kazoo Travel newspaper, there are videos that actually have the ROIs from those jobs in the videos, where the agency actually shares them with the world so that you can see what happened when they created relevant, data-driven, consumer-facing material, and the response rates are amazing.